everybody. We're at NACE 2015, and I'm here with John Van Alstyne, the CEO of Icar. And John, you've been with Icar now 5 years, and 5 years ago I had an interview with John, and I told him I'd be back to ask some questions about how it's been going. So, John, welcome. Thanks so much for spending time with us today.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Now, last 5 years at Icar, what are the main challenges you've seen in the collision industry during those 5 years?
Well, I would say that there's four key things I think that we've keyed on at Icar, not to be redundant there. Number one, I would say the technical tsunami, as we've coined it. I think it's having a bigger impact on the industry, certainly over the past 5 years. Number two, I would say, is the notion of learning culture and the kind of more intense need for that, I believe, across the industry. And I think the industry really waking up to that. Number three is, I think, probably always been with the industry, and that's the search for performance that the industry has, business performance, success and sustainability of the ecosystem. And number four, I think, and I think it's really important to the future of our industry, is the focus on the consumer. So I think those are really the key things that we see and that we're working to address.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that white paper that Icar put out.
Sure.
There were some studies, I believe, in 2012, 13, and the first quarter 2015, correct?
Yeah, right.
Okay, now I was reading through that, and a couple things sort of stood out to me. And one was about the lack of welding certification for technicians. I think it was, less than 10%?
Yeah, so we look at, Icar is a principal provider of welding training across the industry. And about 2 years ago, we really beefed up our program, and we changed the name from qualification test to welding training and certification. So we've done some analysis of the industry to try to get a ballpark idea how many technicians are actually welding. And when we look at that number versus the population that Icar has trained over the recent years, and keeping in mind that we are probably the principal provider of training for welding, there's others. Audi does some training, and BMW does training as well, et cetera. But we really are the principal provider out there. So if you look at the total numbers against the population that Icar's trained, we would estimate roughly 2/3 of the industry who welds has not been trained on our basic steel program. And then if you take that to our other two key programs, sectioning and then aluminum, in both cases, the number grows to about 90% of the industry hasn't been trained.
That's kind of scary, isn't it?
So that was a big wake-up call to us. And so therefore, we've really been pounding the drum, if you will. So anytime I get an opportunity to be on the stage or do an interview like this, thanks for the opportunity to beat my drum.
Thanks for being here. The other thing was about the length of rental. It said that Icar Gold Class shops in this study proved that the length of rental can be decreased, and that was important for consumers in some way. So could you talk a little bit about why it's important for consumers?
Well, sure. Let me talk about the length of rental first. So we're fortunate to have good relations across the industry. I think it's part of our centrality in the industry, and so that white paper talked about a couple things. Number one, it talked about what Icar found in our KPI studies with shops, because we went in to try to prove the value of training, right, and look at that connection of training to shop performance. So we saw significant gains through training in shops that hadn't been trained in things like cycle time and touch time and customer satisfaction index and also supplement frequency. And so that was good. And we've also partnered with outside organizations, Enterprise being one, on the length of rental, and then also Syncast with their SPV scores as well. So we saw that improvement gain in our studies. Then if we look to Syncast, for example, the Syncast data says that gold class shops outperform the average by 51%.
Now let me ask you this real quick, and there are some critics to the study, and the only thing I saw that kind of stuck out was they said that, well, when you did the study, you gave a certain point structure to the shops, and they all got points for being Icar Gold, so the shops that you compared against them without Icar Gold, they felt were maybe at a little bit of a disadvantage, but isn't that what the study was all about?
Well, that's the Syncast SPV rating.
Okay.
They do have a factor that's built in there. I don't know exactly what it is, but it doesn't account for a 51% score differential.
Right, right. Okay, good point, good point.
So then just going back to the length of rental.
Okay.
Recently we worked with Enterprise and they did a data match of our gold class shops against their population in their database. And what they saw is that gold class outperforms the gold class population, which is pretty sizable in their database, outperformed the average by 11%. And then they took different cuts at it. They looked at the top 500 gold class shops and the top 100. And the top 100 shops performed, I think the number off top was 44% better. It all kind of comes back to the same story, that there is an ROI training. And I would say that it's not just training, though. I mean, it's not like training's the silver bullet.
Right.
But I think that the idea that gold class is a real strong signal that really good things are going on in that shop. And I would say the foundation of that is a knowledgeable workforce.
Let's kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about the website. The website's come a long way in 5 years. The OEM portal is awesome. A lot of people love that. It's a good ad. And you also have a consumer piece now too. So you want to just briefly talk a little bit about that?
As I mentioned earlier, we believe that the consumer can really help change our industry for the good. And we do believe that the consumer needs to be the focus of everything that we do because they're the ones that drive the cars, right? To that end, we actually updated our vision statement back in 2013, and our vision statement now reads complete safe quality repairs for the ultimate benefit of the consumer.
Okay.
And so Icar's taken on the consumer quite seriously. We've beefed up what we call goldclass.com. You can access that through icar.com under the consumer tab, or you can go directly to goldclass.com. And it's much more educational for the consumer. We're working hard to educate the consumer. We have marketing budget specifically assigned to execute that task. And when we started our consumer activity, we started by actually testing the consumer. We worked with an outside market research agency to research a sizable population of consumers off the street. And as you might guess, on the first run through on that, the consumer really had very little awareness of collision repair in general, and other than they have to get their car fixed. They actually had a little bit of understanding of gold class, which was surprising to us. So maybe we got lucky and found a couple that
that did know.
That did know. But then we ran another slice of that where we provided a certain level of education and then retested, and the consumer care or interest meter went significantly up.
That's great.
So the consumer does care. I think
if they're educated.
I think we have a duty to educate the consumer. I think consumer choice is great, but I think consumers need to be educated to make good choices.
You're right. Now we're running short on time, so I just want to end up with this. What's your vision for Icar in the next 5 years?
Well, we got a lot in the pipeline. We restated our mission statement as well back in 2013, and now Icar, I think, has been historically viewed as a training organization, and it's not that we're getting out of training, it's a key part of what we do, but we do more than that. We're really an education, knowledge, and solutions organization now, and that calls us to do some different things. So we're working to enhance our training. We've brought out several new classes over the past couple years, and those classes are all much more interactive and engaging, and really a different Icar class. And so I would encourage folks that haven't been to an Icar class recently to go check out like aluminum intensive vehicles, for example, or New 15 or blueprinting. And so we're working on that. We're moving to what we call purpose-built courses, and some Icar courses of old were really designed around live delivery, a 3-hour classroom, and we've converted those into other formats to make training more accessible. Well, now we're taking the next step to really tailor those classes for those different delivery formats. And by doing that, we're able to tighten up the delivery so they're nominally shorter than what they used to be. And we've eliminated redundancies because we're looking at prerequisites and sequential learning. And all of the classes are way more interactive. So we're working on really reinventing our product portfolio, if you will, and that's going to take us a little bit of time. We have some tools in place now to do that. We do everything electronically now in our product development group. We've taken the new class from 11 months down to 8 months cycle time to develop, so it's about a 30% speed improvement. And we're working to flesh out our information portals. So the repairability technical support portal, we look to build that out and add more value there. And at the same time, we're going to try to make ourselves easier to do business with. So we've got some complexity reduction that we need to work on.
John, all good stuff. I really appreciate you being with me today. If you haven't been to the Icar website, go check it out. It really has been improved. And John, thanks so much. And I know you're doing everything you can to increase the training in this industry, which is sorely needed.
That's our objective.
Thank you very much.
It's right in our vision statement, every.
That's you.